Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is April 6th, year 2022. I hope everyone is doing well, and we are into spring. So I hope everyone is doing well. Enjoying the spring allergies. That's what happens here in Texas. We have some kind of hay fever or something going on. So a lot of people with spring allergies, but that's pretty normal. We have fall cedar and spring hay fever. So I just wanted, I think I see Kelly and Kelly joining. So in a few minutes, they're going to join. I know April will not be available today. Unfortunately, she had something going on. So I'll introduce the people that are right now on the panel. Welcoming Patricia, who is a fellow member. She's part of the core group of meditators here. And then we have Ken as well. Good evening, Ken. And Kelly and Kelly, who are our Qigong teachers, are about to join. They've joined online, but I don't see them on video. So as soon as they come up on video, I'll start to ask the question. And I'm thinking that Caesar is going to join a little bit late, but Eileen and April will not be able to join. Okay. Good evening, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining.
The other Kelly's coming too, which is one of those days.
No worries. The reason I want to wait is because this is an excerpt from Tao Te Ching that Lakshmi asked me to ask the panel. I gave her an answer, but she wanted me to ask the panel. And I want Kelly to join so that I can read it out, because that will make a lot of difference. I'm going to take a minute and tag everyone. Just 1 second. I'll be back.
Tell him to hurry up.
Not to worry, like Eckhart Tolle said, we just sit in presence.
It's okay to have silence, right? Sometimes people think that it's not okay to have silence when we are watching a video.
Not us, we love silence.
Good.
There's a question, but
I'm busy tagging people since we don't have the wonderful Eileen here. So just 1 second. Okay. So Kelly and Kelly, this is the question that Lakshmi had. So in the Tao Te Ching, it says, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. This source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. And she highlighted the darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. And she said, what is that? What does he mean by darkness within darkness?
Take it away.
Go ahead, Kelly. And I'll try and type all this up over here.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there's often a lot of confusion about this. So, yeah, talking about the Tao, when you externalize concepts such as the cosmic ocean, when you give it a verbal expression, you can never, like, you need to spend like a million years just talking about it in order to even come close to actually describing something relevant.
That's just part of it.
Oh yeah. So this is a perennial sort of, it's kind of like a Zen koan. The Tao that can be spoken of is not the Tao, because when we're actually talking about something and analyzing, this is where understanding how mental analysis basically hides truth, because you can't actually talk about truth. You can talk about the concepts, but you can't actually utter truth, because truth is actually unspeakable. And when people say it's unknowable to the mental mind, but not the heart. And when Lao Tzu wrote these passages, he was trying his best to bring people out of a lot of the confusion and overly scholarly analysis of the metaphysics and the spiritual aspects of Taoism. And the darkness within the darkness is basically the origin point of creation. In Chinese cosmology, Taoist cosmology, you have Wu Ji, which is the great emptiness. And this is what the darkness within the darkness is the great Wu Ji, is the great emptiness before things separated into Tai Ji, which is yin and yang concepts, light and darkness. So that's what the darkness within the darkness is the origin point before things actually separated into the universe expressing itself. I could go on.
I think she just typed up.
So the reason why the darkness within darkness is the gateway to all understanding is because this is the point of origin. This is the whole point of getting out of our heads and not bypassing ourselves and actually being present with our hearts, is to be able to feel the point of origin of all of our motivation, to deconstruct all of our programming, and to be able to know and understand the origin point of all of our motivation, the origin point of how we create through either mental projection or through heartfelt mindfulness. So the gateway to all understanding is through feeling. And like Zen koans, you cannot mentally understand or mentally analyze the truth behind these words. You have to go inside and you have to let yourself feel what you're feeling so that you actually understand the origin point of what you're feeling. When you begin to understand how your origin points work, then understanding something like this is actually fairly simple to understand. But again, grasping it, understanding how it all fits together, it's a knowing, it's an understanding. It is something that is beyond what the mind could ever hope to understand. So we have to feel it, we have to know it, and we have to understand it through feeling the information in our nervous system and in our energy field.
So it's like what they're saying is like, if as soon as you start labeling or thinking, then you don't really have it.
Yeah.
Because then you're right or something.
This is where Eckhart
I don't
gets
know that. You've read all the other stuff. So I was let you talk.
This is where Eckhart gets this whole concept of not labeling things. This concept, this aspect of mindfulness, of going beyond even the concept of darkness and darkness within darkness. Basically, one of the secret methods of Taoist internal alchemy is actually sitting in a dark room. So you're sitting in darkness, and your darkness within yourself reveals itself because you are isolated, you're in darkness, you have no external interactions with the triggering, like the way we actually interact with the outside world is very, very programmed in terms of how we view light and darkness. And by going inside and sitting within our own darkness, by sitting in darkness with our own darkness, the motivation, the origin points of our own darkness, we reveal to ourselves the origins of our true self. And this is where, you know, the Zen koan of like, what was your true face before you were born comes from. The concept of understanding who you were before you were actually born is not something that your mind will ever grasp, but you can feel it when you're actually present and you're actually sitting in darkness. When you're actually sitting within yourself and being present with yourself, you can actually feel it and understand it. No. So you're being very literal here in terms of yeah.
I'm literal too. Yeah.
Darkness in this context is the absence of external light. So no. This is the kind of darkness that has got nothing to do with physical space. It's got nothing to do with the universe or like being out in space among the stars. It's not like that at all.
It's like the darkness that when you go into the depths of your stillness, like you almost feel like a void. Like it almost is like a dark hole, right? Black hole, that you're going into a black hole and there's infinity to that depth. And that is the darkness that he's talking about. So Dr. Judas, were you done, Kelly?
That's not that is part of the darkness, but the origin point before even our understanding that we have senses. Our understanding before we have senses is all about feeling. When we're in the womb, we are within that same kind of darkness because we are not engaged in the external world. Our five senses are not engaged, except as we develop and just before we are born, we are in that same kind of darkness. So this is sort of a very primordial space that we're talking about. When looking inside, one of the ways that you will come to know this darkness is by the gaps in understanding of the old space and the new space. That threshold point, when you cross from the old reality into a new reality, there is a gap of darkness because there is nothing there. There's nothing new. And when that new reality creates itself, you have to step over that gap, which is how you begin to understand how fragmented your awareness is when you step into a new reality and you grieve the old reality and you integrate it and you close that gap of darkness, because that darkness becomes the bridge that it's actually full of information. So one of the things that we have a tendency to do is we tend to view darkness as empty, where, you know, we look at the night sky and it's like, oh, there's all this space between all the stars and stuff like that, except all that space is actually full of information. Especially when we are talking about the darkness within ourselves, there is just different kinds of information. But we are often scared of looking at the darkness because the darkness represents new information. Looking at our darkness, the empty spaces that we haven't looked at, that we haven't literally shone the light of our heart onto or been present with, represent new information. So there's a lot here. I'll just leave it there. Poonam was making a really, really good point, and you're going to bring up something that Joe Dispenza was talking about, I believe.
He just takes us through, and we've done that meditation, which is the Blessings of Energy Center 4, where we go through the energy centers, but then he takes us through a void where he says, in front of you, do you see the darkness? And do you see the depth of it? Do you see the height of it? Do you see the length of it? Then do you see it on your right side? Do you see it on your left side? Do you see it behind you? Right? So he's pulling us into the unknowable, the
Right.
point of omega point, right?
Was it so space? I thought he said space, not darkness. Does
He
that
says
matter?
he says it's darkness.
Darkness? Oh, I thought it, for some reason I was mistaken. I thought he was saying there's space, like space behind you, space, you know, like I thought he said space.
He says either he says dark or he says black. There's a black void in front of you. There's a black void to the right of you. But that would be what Eckhart would call the unmanifested, the point of origin.
So why actually double, Kelly? Because it says darkness within the darkness is the gateway, not just darkness. What does that mean? I know my mind is trying to figure this one out.
And that's the problem.
And that's
the
yeah,
problem.
it's a
Your mind
yeah.
wants to grasp it and wants to have an answer. And what you're actually experiencing and showing yourself is the darkness within the darkness, the unknowable. You're feeling your mind unable to grasp the concept. You're projecting a need to have a very specific outcome to this whole concept. And the darkness within the darkness is a space that your mind cannot understand. So you're actually giving yourself a gift of feeling that confusion of trying to like, oh, I want this. It's like you can't quite peel it like an orange, but you know that it's kind of like an orange, but it's not an orange.
I think it's almost like with this meditation that we sometimes do with the question, who am I? And there's no answer. It's like there's no answer there. Who am I? So.
Well, there are different ways to answer that. But this is sort of one of those perennial questions that I've watched people struggle with, and I struggle with myself in terms of understanding the concept of the great emptiness before separation in Taoist cosmology, in Qigong, where there is a vast ocean of awareness inside of us. When you go inside, when you can physically let your body and your mind integrate together. And there's a space of what the Zen Buddhists call no mind, where your mind is not engaged, your mental mind is not engaged. You've integrated, you've actually felt the origin point of your mind, and you pulled it into the origin point of your heart, and they're unified, and you're not trying to project outward or label everything. You just feel that space of your body, and there's no questions.
And that this is Tao because it cannot be named, right? Or spoken.
Yeah, this is the brilliance of Lao Tzu and Tao Te Ching, where he has these really concise, almost mystifying, mystical utterances that he's written down, that part of your mind gets it, but you can feel the depth behind it. Yeah, and your mind goes, oh, but it must mean this then, or that, or whatever. And it's like, no, you know, they're just words. Those are still words. And that's the whole point, is understanding that the words are still, they're just external. They're not the internal presence of knowing. They're not the internal space of understanding and feeling.
Thank you. Wow.
Incredible. Thank you, Kelly and Kelly. Caesar, did you want to say something about this? And welcoming Caesar and Marla that I did not get a chance to introduce. Marla is one of our regular group meditators. Good evening, Marla. And Caesar has done channeling, is that correct, Caesar? And is a spiritual teacher and a regular member of our Facebook live Q&A panel. Good evening, Caesar.
Good evening, and thank you, Poonam. So briefly, the way I understand this verse in the Tao is, so one of my best recollections brings me back to some stuff that Wayne Dyer had done in regards to breaking each verse down. There's, I believe, like 80 or 81 verses in the Tao. And Wayne pretty much really specifically gave a pretty good understanding in relations to each verse. So he put ample time into doing just that. And that was, you know, his 1 year dedicated to doing this. And just taking some of his insight in breaking the words down, you know, Eckhart always says, just like Kelly was saying, you know, they're signposts. So in a sense, it's a metaphor. Maybe it's a parable in a sense as well. So when he gets to the free from desire, we realize the mystery. Caught in desire, we see only manifestations, yet mystery and manifestations arise from the same source. Remember that word. Source is called darkness. He's telling you right there. Darkness within darkness is gateway to all understanding. So if he's calling darkness source, source is called darkness, another name. So the way I interpret this is that we know that we are an extension of source, yes? And the understanding, in my perspective, is that being aware of the fact that we are an extension of source, that would be the same thing as darkness being a part of darkness. A drop of water in the ocean is still the entire ocean. There is no separation. And I think that's what he's pointing to there. Kelly had a very awesome explanation. I always love your stuff, Kelly. Very well spoken. So I think in a nutshell, he's referring to that as having this understanding within oneself that you are an extension of the very same source that creates universes through and through. And once you have an understanding of that, there's really nothing to figure out. Just let things be as source would let things be. Through the eyes of source, you can say, which is just, you know, emptiness. You said the word void, and immediately what came to mind is the void within the void. Same thing. So that's my understanding and my best feel of what that is, just to understand that we are source energy. And you can call that whatever you want. And in reference to, you know, the Tao that can't be named is not the internal Tao. You know, Eckhart, I believe, touches on it. Every great master has touched on it and saying that this is not something that can be understood on the level of mind. It just can't. I think the Bible says you just cannot fathom what I am. And then there's that word again, the deep I am. And it's just period. I am, boop, all that I am, everything that I am, connected. And it has a little bit, I mean, I like the Tao because it's always kind of got a little bit of physics intertangled with it, because everything makes sense in such a mystical way throughout, but it backs everything pretty well once you start grasping and understanding, you know, the correlation between verses. Oops.
Otis.
I'm sorry. So there's my couple cents. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. That's a great way to look at it as well. What did Eckhart, and I may not remember this very, like the proper way of, the way Eckhart says it. He says the Buddha is quoted to have said, if there was no unborn, uncreated, unmanifested, we would not know the freedom from the born, the created, the manifested, right? So the pointer, darkness within darkness, is to the unborn, the uncreated, the unmanifested, right? That's where it's pointing to.
Yeah, it's so funny. I commented on, I think, one post today, and that was actually it. And my response was, the Tao that can't be told is not the eternal Tao. And so we got in a brief conversation on it, and it kind of was leading to this. It was pretty cool how this just came about. So nice correlation thing. Yeah, but it's like naming a bird. Once you tell a child that's a blue jay, he misses the whole entire Now it's
Listen to the word.
something instead of just being, period.
Thank you. And Francis said here, I think it is the silence, but that is not what we are talking about. Kelly, it is not the silence. It is beyond the silence, right?
Silence is an aspect of it. The going inside into our own darkness, we will experience the silence. But first, we actually have to silence our minds in order to actually go inside properly to feel that space of emptiness, that void, that darkness, the darkness within darkness. So silence is an aspect of the experience. It's not what we're actually talking about.
Beautiful. Thank you. One question, Caesar, is would that be a high vibrational frequency, like highest vibrational frequency when we are that aligned, that we are experiencing that?
Absolutely.
Any one of you? Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to actually start that up by saying we are first and foremost vibrational beings. And then in part, we are also the extension of source energy. So there are two realizations there, but yes, it is a very high vibe, and you actually can touch fifth dimensions once you have, if you're in a meditative state, and you can go within this and have this exact realization, because you simply become that. The realization of it is incredible, and it's it's rare, but it's possible. Yeah, it's a very high vibration for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you. Ken, did you want to say something?
Yes, I'm just going to be very, very brief. And I really feel that Kelly expressed and explained it so beautifully. And all I want to add is it's absence of fear, absence of thinking, and it's just I am. And if I hadn't experienced the feeling of this inner being of presence, I don't think I would understand anything that he just said. So it's just miraculous how when I can get into that stillness, that's where the downloading of thought, and I don't even know if it's appropriate to call it thought, but there's just information that comes through the presence that lives within. And that's the miraculous miracle of everything that was being said. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ken. Marla, did you have something to say about this?
Again, I have to revert to my own experience here. And I have spent decades trying to understand everything, because I've always wanted to understand everything. I want to know. I want to make sense out of this. I want to understand that. Why this? Why that? I still drive people crazy with why. Why? Well, what do you mean? Why? What do you mean? And having gotten to this age with that, it's almost a compulsion. Okay. And I can see how it serves me in this world. But what I know is I have been caught up short so many times when I thought I had it. Oh, I get it. I'd go. And then I would act on it and I'd get shut down. And I'd get, I have been corrected, or I have been, I don't know what the right word is, but I have been made aware that I don't understand much of anything. It's sort of like what I think it was it Aristotle that said, the more I learn, the more I learn that I don't know, that I can't learn. The more I know, the more I find out I don't know. So it's, when I came upon that and the awareness that, oh my God, there's, because everything that I would learn would open another door to another big room. And then I would move into that room. And there was another door on the other side of the wall. Actually, there were several doors, but there was one I wanted to go into. So I go into that, and there's a whole nother world in there, most of which I had never seen before. I'd never seen it before. And I went, wow. How can there be this much in the world that I know, and this much in the world that in whatever, in existence, that I still don't have any idea of? So I no longer struggle with that, except on a curiosity intellectual level, because I'm comfortable now with not knowing. I'm so comfortable with knowing that there is no end to what is true, to what is real, to what is love. There is no end. And for me to think I could wrap my mind around it is ultimate ego in my perception. And I just sort of have given up. And what that has done for me is allowed me to listen, to be more open, to not try to fit everything into my existing understanding. I know our brain takes in information, and the way it takes it in is it links it to what it already knows. So you can only learn as much as you can hook it to what you already know. And that's sort of a box. And I don't know who was talking, one of our teachers was talking about being in a box. Oh, I know, was it Eckhart?
I put it in a YouTube video.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yes.
Yes, you did. You put that in that video. You said we're in a box, and we create our own box. Some people's boxes are littler, for sure. And some boxes are bigger and bigger and bigger, like Kelly's, it's huge. But there's a limit to what our box can hold. And there's so much more than that. And I react to it. My feeling when I'm aware of that is one of awe. Just pure, oh gosh, really? Wow. And I can't, it's hard to express the feeling, but it makes me go still. It makes me just go, and it just puts me in my place. And so I don't worry myself at all when I come across these things like the Tao. I love the Tao. But I don't understand much of it. That's okay. It's like little tiny peek holes that maybe I can get a peek into. And it just makes me more aware of how much is. And so I don't struggle to understand these things anymore. I'm very peaceful and calm with not knowing, because I trust. I finally trust that what is love. For me, it's personal. It's personal for each of us. I'm being cared for. I just totally trust. And that's one thing that's happened in the last couple of years in my deepest heart, is that I've been able to, I used to think that I had to understand things so that I could trust it. If I can understand it, then I can trust it. Well, that's very limited. And now I know that's not true. And I have stepped out in faith enough times now where I thought nothing was there for me to step on, and I found it to be solid. So I guess I don't struggle with what these things mean anymore, except I do like what they tell me. They tell me about what is, in a way that is more real than what I can understand. So I just rest. I rest in the palm of how I would say it from a Catholic perspective, I rest in the palm of God's hand and I'm being cared for. And he's, you know, I mean, there's lots of ways to express it, the trust. But when I hit upon something I don't understand, it does not scare me anymore. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. I know it's okay. It's all okay. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marla. You're always like decades of wisdom that comes through, with decades of wisdom and experience. It's better to dwell in the not knowing, and it's okay to be in the not knowing.
It is so okay. Because if you're not okay and not knowing, you struggle. Struggle. And that's stressful. It's not peaceful. It's struggle. Pick up another book. Look at another author. I mean, I have checked out everything, just about everything there is, unless it's in another language. I mean, tarot and I Ching, Tao and Confucius and different versions of Christianity and numerology and, you know, all the medium of, I don't know what the word is, the modes of trying to find out information, to know. And they all come up wanting. They all come up wanting. The only one that doesn't come up wanting, that serves me so entirely dependably, is my inner sense of knowing this God within. To a Catholic, I would say it's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is what you can trust. The Holy Spirit is within you. To this group, I would say it's present. You know, it's the awareness of the presence within me and my connection to it, and how well I stay connected, and how clear I keep those pipes that connect my head and my body to that source that is going to be my security. So
Beautiful.
I'm just so grateful to have been able to live long enough to get to this point. That's all I can say. I've been so grateful for that so many times. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Patricia, did you have more questions?
How did you know? I don't know if it had questions, but when Marla was talking about the box, the thought that came to me is that our bodies are the boxes. You know, the consciousness was packaged piece of it, I guess, into the box of a human body. But now, is the mind the connection, the heart connection with it? So we have to, like, first we're using mind trying to figure it out, but then we realize it limits. So then we go to the next thing, because there is something that is not physical, but yet we can only feel it through the experience. So when I read Tao, for me, it's more of an experience reading. It's like I'm experiencing reading it, not through words, but something different. So I think that, I don't know if it was a question or even if it makes sense, but I'm at that point that Marla is too. I used to need to know everything, figure it out, but I don't have to anymore. I kind of just trust now, surrender. I like doing that. That's my strategy, just surrender. And even though, yeah, questions sometimes come up, but I think what they're saying, enlightenment somewhere, that you're not gonna get answers to your questions. There will be no more questions. So we think that, like, we go have a question, then that answer to that one question brings 3 more, 10 more questions. Then they're just like growing, and finally we get to the point that there's no questions, and that's the answer. No. No, Karen question, because we don't know what we don't know. We actually cannot know what possibly we don't know. That's the limit.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for that personal experience. Adding on to, go ahead, Caesar.
It just reminds me, I seen a funny meme with Sadhguru, and he was sitting cross-legged and having a conversation with the gentleman, and the gentleman asked him, "What is your secret to peace?" And he says, "I no longer argue with people." And the guy said, "Well, I disagree." And of course, he responded, "You're right."
Since Caesar brought up Sadhguru, another one of his quick-witted answers about this is somebody asked him, what is enlightenment? And he starts off by saying, enlightenment should actually be called darkenment, because that state is completely dark, black, pitch black, darkenment. So that's why I kind of understood when one, the whole experience of going within and it's dark, and then the fact that darkness within darkness, that's what, like, in the world of form, that's what it reminded me of, is enlightenment should actually be called darkenment. It shouldn't be called enlightenment. So let's go to the next question. Let me copy it. I think we didn't discuss this. It is, somebody asks, accepting what is and the way you're feeling brings peace. I can understand how resisting what is can bring anxiety, but really sitting with how you feel when it is anxiety due to feeling unwell and overwhelmed with being solely responsible for your children. I have a voice in my head at times like that. I try to quiet and says, no, I can't deal with this. I can't handle this. And I turn it around and say, I can handle everything that comes my way. But sometimes, like today, it takes a lot of mental energy. And therefore, I know I am still resisting. Can others relate? When you're fully accepting what is, even when it is uncomfortable, how does that feel? Kelly and Kelly, how does that feel when you're fully accepting what is?
Well, as someone who has dealt with a lot of anxiety and learned how to release it, like over my lifetime, and not only that, but also those kind of patterns in my children, I understand that. I've been there at the end of the day when I'm really tired and I've been helping my kids process through things and I need to process through things. And sometimes I'm triggered and I've been anxious and I wonder, like, where am I going to get the money to pay this bill? Or you feel anxious about, anything, or just about, and really when you're feeling uncomfortable and you're sitting with it, it's uncomfortable. It's not meant to be a happy moment. And I think that I used to do the bypass where I'd be like, well, got to do affirmations, got to find gratitude. I don't want to feel this way, but really, like, actually just allowing yourself to feel that and knowing that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to feel different. Or if I just have a good cry, he always jokes about the fact that crying is my superpower, because whenever I feel something that needs to be released, no matter where it is in my body, I will cry. And now I do it. I used to try to hide it. Now I'll just do it wherever. Just like, because I know that once I do that and I cry, because the real resistance for me came when I just didn't want to feel bad. I didn't want to feel like that. But for me, like, just having a really good cry is such a good release, because it also relaxes your body. There's like physiological things that happen when you cry too, that relaxes you. So I encourage people to cry. That's my thing, because I have had that voice. I know what that feels like. to have that voice in your head that says, I can't do this today. I don't think I can do this. But the thing is, I'm already in the middle of it. So I'm already doing it. And it's just one moment. At this particular moment in time, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling anxious. That's what I'm feeling right this second. It doesn't have to be a place that I set up camp and live there. And so whenever I've felt like that, I would encourage myself to cry. I mean, I can remember so many times when my kids were small, being a single mom, where I would cry myself to sleep. And as sad as that sounds, but it really isn't, because then I could relax and I'd have a better night's sleep. And I'd wake up in the morning feeling like today is a different day. Today's a better day. And I've always encouraged my kids to feel their emotions and to cry too, because even if you feel angry, behind anger is always some kind of sadness or grief or something like that. So I don't know, crying for me is like, it's my superpower.
Well, you can be at peace and still feel the discomfort of your ego trying to influence you. So this is sort of one of the things that I've learned, is that on the journey and achieving a measure of discipline and stillness inside, one can still feel the discomfort of the ego pressuring and trying to influence you, and still be at peace and not succumb to the influence. And those voices inside, that's information. Yeah, our ego and our shadow likes to try and influence us and control us, and we can still be at peace and hear those voices, because until we actually process through and integrate all the information that our ego and our shadow are hiding, we're still going to feel and hear the voices. And
that's just a story.
And
right?
it's
That's just a story that your mind's trying to tell you.
And it'll feel uncomfortable, especially if we are rejecting it, because we can think that we are in a space of stillness and have that pressure. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience, and have that pressure, and we can have stillness in the discipline of stillness, but still reject what we're feeling. So there's different layers to the subtleties of understanding how to accept and how to let yourself feel something, because you can have very, very strong discipline and control over yourself and still be rejecting, not judging so much as just pushing something away that you don't want to feel. So when we are listening and when we are being present with ourselves, we have to also consciously choose to not reject what we are feeling from our ego and our shadow, because it's very easy, once we develop even a small measure of discipline with stillness, to push something away. And because we have that discipline of stillness, we can believe that we're not rejecting when we actually are, just by pushing it away and not acknowledging it.
Because sometimes you can think that you're too spiritual to have these feelings.
Yeah, basically.
And not true, because it depends on where you are. And if you allow yourself to observe them and not let them run your life, like in that moment, I can feel anxious and know that, oh, this is just a momentary thing. I lived since I could remember, and I don't anymore, because I've stepped out of that, letting myself feel that anxiety, because I would always push the anxiety away. I didn't want to feel fear. I didn't want to feel anxious. So I would just pretend I didn't do it, and I'd stuff it down. And it wasn't until I became a young adult, and where I was like, oh no, I can't stuff. There's only so much you can stuff down before you have to deal with it at some point. So the resistance to feeling it was really what was hurting me. So when I stopped resisting that and allowed myself to just feel it and let it come out, and I don't have to project it at people, and for me, anxiety was a really difficult one, I think, to deal with, because it had been such a foundation for my whole life. So basically, I was building a brand new foundation, because I didn't have to live in that state. So
yeah, we can have feelings of pressure from the ego and shadow and still be at peace. We can have voices in our head until we actually integrate those aspects of ourselves, the darkness, and actually understand the origin points of those spaces and of those voices and the motivation behind them, we'll still have that pressure. Sometimes it's a voice, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a measure of discomfort. Sometimes it's ours, sometimes it's not. And this is one of the reasons why understanding and being able to feel the body are so important, because then you teach yourself how to actually find that darkness within the darkness, the origin points behind that discomfort, and are then able to observe and understand why, and so that you can integrate them so that you stop feeling the pressure.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kelly and Kelly. That was incredible. So, Eckhart would say you have to give that emotion the spaciousness of presence, feel it completely, because if not, like that inner state will manifest something else. We see in the present moment, it'll just spiral, right? This anxious moment will lead to another huger anxious moment, to somebody having an accident, somebody ending up in the hospital, something else happening that's spiraling in, right? So the more we feel it and allow that emotion to be just as it is, not wanting it to, and that's what the resist nothing is, is just feel it in our body.
Yeah.
Like feel it in every cell of our body. Where is it moving around, right? Is it in the stomach? Is it in our lower abdomen? Or is it in our chest?
Yeah. Or headache. Yeah.
Or a headache. Yeah, a lot of people get migraines because of it. So.
Yeah.
And sleep is, Kelly, the fact that you brought up sleep, this is one of Abraham Hicks's biggest tips. She says, if you are in a vibrational state, that kind of vibrational state, then go to sleep, because then that vibrational, to break the momentum of the vibrational state, she says you go to sleep because sleep is returning to source.
Yes.
And so when you wake up, you're completely refreshed. Just don't pick up that same momentum. Don't pick up what you slept with, right? Whatever anxiety, whatever was causing the anxiety, don't pick it up again. But once you sleep. So she says that's her thing. Go take a nap or go sleep.
Yeah, because we do a lot of emotional and physical healing when we're sleeping. So the more rest your body gets, then you can allow those things to move. And also, I was the kind of person, though, that I had no trouble falling asleep because I was so tired. But my ego would actually wake me up at like 3, 4 in the morning and want me to solve all these problems that I thought I had. And I would be awake for an hour or two going, oh yeah, okay, I can pay this and I can do that. And then I would feel better. And then I could go back to sleep. But that was actually really exhausting. And that was a process in and of itself. If anybody else who's listening has that difficulty, because your ego can wake you up from that sleeping space too, as it did for me. And it doesn't anymore, but I had to really practice that when I woke up, and if I could catch what my mind was trying to do and trying to wake me up and go, oh, we have these problems to solve. And I'd be like, I have nothing to solve right now. The only thing I have to do is go back to sleep. And I had all kinds of, I won't go into all of them, but like, tricks and tips and things that I would do, invocations or, prayers or whatever works to get myself back into a more relaxed space.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that tip. Caesar, did you want to say something about this? And I have another tip from Abraham Hicks about this. So after you speak.
Sure.
Thank you.
One of the things I just wanted to piggyback on of what the guys were speaking on is, so yeah, she's got the narrative, the movie's playing in her head. It's almost as if she's like segment intending this stuff in a small sense. Almost as if she knows this is going to be the deal. And so you just might be inviting that to happen, to manifest the situation. That is, there's a couple things in this, in the question, the statement. She's talking about due to the feelings overwhelmed with being solely responsible for your children. There's an attachment there. Yes, we have, young children. We do have the responsibility to keep them safe. Many single parents raising children on their own with no help is a thing, and you've been handling it, and if you're listening, and you've been dealing with it, and now is to shut down the narrative in your head, that thinking. Going into a situation, you start off the question absolutely perfect, accepting what is, and the way you are feeling brings peace. Absolutely, 100%. And then the question is, when you are fully accepting of what is, even when it is uncomfortable, how does that feel? Well, very, very, very extremely peaceful. You answered your own question, 100%. And when you start practicing on the little things throughout the day, we talk about this often. Somebody says something, we get a million opportunities a day, almost constantly, it seems like, to practice surrendering, to practice accepting. It could be something that even your child says, or the child says, or wants, or says no when you tell them to do something or not do something. It's an opportunity to practice the acceptance, to practice surrendering of the isness of that situation, and to hold the responsibility of raising, your child on your own, can be difficult. We know this. However, it doesn't have to be overwhelming, not at all. So maybe change the entire mindset. You've been doing it. I just got to touch this again here really quick. Accepting the anxiety, sure. Overwhelming, solely responsibility for your children. I have a voice in my head. Okay. All right, quiet, that says, no, I can't deal with, can't handle this. And I turn around and say, I can't handle everything comes my way. But sometimes, like today, it's a lot of mental energy, therefore I'm still resisting. Okay, so I mean, obviously, there's just has to be more of a put your practice into full gear now. Practice accepting everything that happens in your life, but understand to not be aware of accepting things before they happen. Because when you do that, when you kind of look at the situation and say, I know this is going to be difficult today, but I'm going to get through it. Be careful with that, because what you're doing is you're inviting, I know it's going to be a difficult day or a difficult situation. Just that thought is inviting that situation, and will it show up? You can pretty much count on it. So just instead of saying that, clean up the words a little bit, as Abe would say, and just say today is going to be a smooth day. Everything is going to be peaceful. Just keep it all positive is what I'm trying to say. Nothing negative should, utter out of the mouth. And then when these situations come about that are used to being called irritations, no longer call them irritations. That would be the negative again. So switch that to opportunities to practice. Because if we can't, surrender to the business of little tiny things that happen, in life, how difficult is it going to be when the big things show up? And they will show up, but they no longer have to be this traumatizing thing in your life that, weighs you down and depletes you and, consumes you. It doesn't have to be that way. So, we are all here. Everybody's on their journey, and through this journey, we practice the information that we've get. Marla, you said it well, and maybe best, about how the best teacher is the soul. Your life experiences, life is the greatest teacher. Reading signposts and words by other great teachers and masters is very helpful, great stepping stone, as are religions. Religions are just a set of belief systems. So everybody's on a journey, but we must practice on a daily, almost moment to moment. Really, it is a practice for most people that are, excelling a little faster than others. And it doesn't matter where you're at in your journey, forward is forward. So if you can be conscious of the things that, irritate you, start off with, not today. Great opportunity. Thank you. And then you can have a little bit of gratitude when these things show up. So imagine going from, okay, I know this is tough. Okay, it's hard to deal with. I'm going to accept it. Okay, I'm going to accept it. Instead of that response, try the other approach, which is just inviting. Okay, this ugly situation just showed up. I'm going to accept this 100%, and I'm going to feel great. And that's what happens almost instantly. And when you start correlating the piece, the moment you surrender to something, it's almost instantaneously, happens within you. There's just a peace because it's over when you truly 100. It's one thing to say, I accept that, and then you walk out of the room and you kick a door. That's not full acceptance. Them are words. And we do it all the time. But, like I said, the best approach would be to practice the little things. Life offers us 1,000,001 opportunities on a daily basis. And after a while, you'll start realizing things really aren't so important anymore to even get upset about. You'll start not even giving your energy to that, because it's, pretty much all about the momentum, and Poonam just touched on it, about going to sleep. And that's so awesome, to break that momentum, because when you're on, you ever notice when you're having a bad day or something, bad happens, you're struggling with a question or a problem at work or something, and you get irritated, you allow it to irritate you, and you get frustrated, and then it, builds a little bit because you keep giving your energy to it. And once you feed grows, and next thing you know, this thing is consuming you. Then you go to walk out of the door and you're angry, you stub your toe, now you're even more mad. And then you turn around the corner and you bump into somebody and you drop your plate of food, and it just snowballs. And that is the momentum. That is the contrast of the momentum that I'm talking about. And it can start off first thing in the morning when you open your eyes. And it's just about really being still, finding something to be grateful for. You get to create your own momentum every time you open your eyes. And as far as, Kelly was speaking about waking up at 4 a.m. So Sadhguru, I seen several years ago, said, when you wake up at 4 a.m, stay up, just try it and stay up and see what happens. So I did. And the energy at 4 a.m, I can just tell you, was extremely magical. I sometimes I do go back to sleep, and then when I wake up, I'm almost, oh man, because it is such amazing, just like exuberant, blissful peace. It's like you can feel the energy if you allow yourself to do this, and just the stillness. And you can just sit on the porch and look at the sky and just look into the vastness and really honestly get lost in the whole entire universe. I was looking in one of the fur baby's eyes a couple of nights ago, and I literally seen the entire universe in the eyeballs of an animal. And I literally dwelled there for 3 minutes. And when I came through, I was just, my pillow was covered in tears, and I wasn't crying because of any other reason other than, I guess, gratitude was just flowing out of me. Because that has been my practice for a while, is to create this overwhelming gratitude as soon as I open my eyes. And as soon as something along the day happens that interferes with that momentum, I immediately stop whatever it is I'm giving my attention to, because I know it doesn't make me feel good. I accept it, whatever it is, as it is. I no longer feed it. So I stop growing. I snip that momentum, and I get right back to smiling and walk away, or I'll sit there if I must sit there. Can't be rude and walk away from people sometimes. But it is very important to break that icky momentum, because that's the ego at work. We know when we get frustrated, it's because of, the resistance or not being present. Presence power has everything to do with feeling really good and accepting all that is in this moment. And it's saying that I'm grateful for everything that is right here, right now, that's in my here and now, whatever the contents may be. That's presence power. That's gratitude. That's acceptance. That's surrender. That's everything we want it to be and more. And again, so by practicing the little things, through acceptance and surrender and forgiveness, it becomes easier and easier. And there's a lot of realizations and growth that comes just from that little practice, because that really, Marla was saying, you practiced or studied, every religion under the sun, and I'm sure all of them, every one of them has, the same core teachings, and they all consist of, the Trinity there, as far as the acceptance, the forgiveness, and the surrender. Every single one of them. It's very key. Then you have the attachments and everything like that, and that's another issue there. But so I would say practice the acceptance on a daily basis. There are no, you'll lessen the anxiety, you'll lessen the frustration. There will be no more narrative of I can't do this, but I have to do this. That voice will literally stop in your head, because you're going to flood it with such positive light. Darkness cannot survive in the presence of light. Speaking of darkness, so I threw the extra penny in there, and that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Caesar. It was actually Kelly who brought up the go to sleep tip, not me. I just remembered what Abraham Hicks says about it. So thank you, Kelly.
I was just going to say, I think perspective. Now I can appreciate being awake at 4 a.m. When I was an exhausted mother breastfeeding, 4 o'clock wasn't always so magical. And that's okay, right?
So before Caesar was going to speak, what tip I remembered, and we talked about it during the Facebook Lives the past couple of years, is Abraham Hicks says you cannot, her favorite statement is, you cannot get there from here. So when your anxiety is high, you cannot get to what love Marla was talking about. Like, you cannot get to love, right? You cannot get to gratitude. You're in anxiety. How are you going to get into gratitude, right? So she says, step it down. She has like a scale of 26 emotions. So she says, if you are in rage, step it down to anger, then step it down to frustration, then step it down to irritation and annoyance, then step it down to the next emotion, right? You cannot get from anxiety to love. So think a thought that will allow you to step it down from anxiety. So that's another way, that's her tip on how to, so think a thought or do something that will make you step it down to the next, get irritated from anxiety, get irritated about something, or do something that will step it down to maybe sadness. And then you can move to, ultimately, then you have to move to gratitude, because that's where you will get to that unconditional love and your connection to source. So gratitude is where we need to go, but it won't happen immediately. Since this person said something about being unwell, and Patricia has done such an amazing job with her anxiety and being well, did you want to talk about that, Patricia?
It was a process for me. I mean, it's still, like Kelly and Caesar said, it's practice. Ken also many times talks about it. It's just, there's no way around it. So we have to give ourselves that compassion in the moment that sometimes we, fail in the moment to do it, but it's just going back to it. And the best pointer is going back to the present moment. That's where the power is. It's truly is the power. So my advice would be finding that one point that works. For some people it's meditation, for some people it's a mantra, for some people it's something physical, like breathe, conscious breathing, or just feeling that we're in the body. It is like Kelly always points, feel it in your body. Where is this anxiety sitting? Abraham Hicks talks about that 16 seconds. Just sit there for 60 and let it pass. so that you're leaving that vibration energy of anxiety, and then you can actually consciously move to a different state. But for me, it was also huge. By itself, I couldn't do it. So I had to do something physical. So yoga helped me, just sometimes going for a walk, hugging a tree, believe it or not, just feeling the energy of tree and just saying ho'oponopono. That was helping me too, saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Just everyone has different things, so it works. Something I try different things, and then even your suggestion of the post-its is I still have like everywhere around the house. Surrender, whatever brings me to the present moment, because that's where for me the true transformation magic happens every time. And the more of those moments I have, then the more of them I have. It's like it's just what's happening, the energy of it. So that's what. But I also added the medical medium, something physically also removing. I had so many heavy metals that I believe that they were stuck in my brain, causing that firing of electric firing in the brain that was not just working right. So I added to this, and that really helped as well. So I don't know what exactly, if there was one thing that really was the turning point, or just combination of all of them, or doing them for a specific time, but that could be different for anyone. But like Eckhart says, it doesn't take time to do this. So once you get to the present moment, you're there. So almost like the trick is to help us get out of the past presence. This is where the worry and anxiety happens, to be in that present moment and just feel it completely. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Patricia. And that's one part that I wanted to bring up is medical medium says that anxiety is caused by how our adrenals, like we've shot our adrenals, one with caffeine. We eat chocolate, we eat cocoa, matcha tea, all of those caffeine, like they affect our adrenals. And then along with that, our phrenic nerve and our, what's the other nerve? Vagus nerve are not functioning correctly. And because of that, and there are heavy metal deposits, because of that, we are anxious. So diet does help. Diet does help immensely. Getting the heavy metals out. And then I know Kelly is going to say about some of the adaptogens, but ashwagandha, he recommends ashwagandha to balance the adrenals. For the vagus nerve and phrenic nerve, he says lemon balm. So it's a natural supplement. People can do lemon balm, licorice, and I think ashwagandha and B12. Because our nerves, we all run into B12 deficiency. And everybody can go get tested, go to the doctor, get your B12 tested. If you're deficient, he has a tincture of B12 that you can take if you don't try the shots. Go ahead, Kelly.
I've experienced caffeine-induced anxiety, and I'm just gonna flat out disagree with the medical medium on this point. Because if you have control and discipline, you can step through the caffeine-induced anxiety. Yes, your adrenal glands are important to understand how the fatigue can affect your anxiety. But again, when you can go inside, you can step through anything that caffeine is doing to you, and you can control and you can discipline yourself. So while the medical medium's got some great advice, I'm just gonna disagree, because my personal experience is completely contrary. because I've experienced caffeine induced anxiety, witnessed this, and stepped back into observation and stopped myself from having any type of reaction or response, even though my body is overstimulated with caffeine. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
You're comparing yourself with somebody that may not have a strong spiritual practice that you have, Kelly.
Yeah,
totally
comparison.
understand. I was gonna say that too. I understand that my own personal discipline seems to be rather rare, but the physical reality is that if you actually are disciplined with yourself, you can actually change in the moment. And this is what we're talking about being present. When you actually have that enough awareness to realize what's actually going on, you can actually stop your nervous system from responding. So while I do agree with the medical medium that the adrenals are really important to understand how caffeine affects it, you can also control yourself. This is sort of one of the illusions of, one of the illusions is that we have no control over our bodies, right? That we can't control our nervous system. But this is the whole point of everything that Eckhart is talking about too, is being present. And while he doesn't talk about it in as so much control, he is still talking about being aware and being present with yourself, which is about control. So when you are actually aware of yourself and you have enough discipline with that, you can actually change the way your body physically responds to everything external, including caffeine. So I just wanted to.
You have to be aware of that.
Yes, you have to be aware. So again, like this is why my personal experience is observing something beyond sort of where the medical medium is coming from. But in terms of a first step and developing awareness, what the medical medium suggests is really good.
Is to take down your whatever is shooting up your adrenals, like take it down a notch. Like don't do that much of caffeine. Like you don't know.
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But again, a lot of the times, one of the big programs that we have to deal with in the illusion is the belief that we are overwhelmed, that we don't have any control when we're overwhelmed.
No,
which is,
this group pretty much knows that they have control, right? They are demonstrating that.
Mhm.
That they have the presence power. They're building their presence power. They may not be where you are, Kelly, because you have like 20, 30 years of experience. But everybody is building.
I think what Kelly's talking about, it's almost a little bit like the placebo effect, right?
It's not the placebo effect.
It's the
Patricia,
belief,
Right.
that we don't have any control while we're being overwhelmed by what our adrenal glands are doing or the caffeine is doing. That's sort of where I'm coming from. It's not exactly the placebo effect, but it is kind of how our belief system, as in our belief in a placebo or our belief in a stimulant or our belief in something external, a herb or food, will cause us to believe that something is happening because of that and that we don't have any control over it. Does that make sense?
Right. So that's maybe I didn't, but for me, the placebo is that, we control with our mind because we do believe that what that's
Right.
the
Okay.
effect that we choosing to have, and not physically that thing would not have that effect if we didn't
Right.
make it into that effect. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Ken, did you want to say something about this? Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Patricia.
Boy, you guys have all, I think, used everything up. I got a couple of things, but that's about
Right.
it, I think. No, it was beautiful. I loved how everybody was expressing themselves. And and I just want to say that whatever I'm feeling, allow myself to feel. And so what experience and what's been coming through for me on very much the same topic is that I'm seeing how I resist when I don't accept. And what's really coming together for me is I'm realizing that I have to have a healthy body because it keeps the score. And if I have any attachments that my mind is unaware of, or if I have my emotions, and I've been doing a lot of inner child work for years now, which has helped me out tremendously. And I'm starting to really put together that my mind, my body, my spirit, and then also my spiritual awakening, in the sense where everything has to connect, because it is all connected. And I have to surrender all those areas. And so I'm starting to see some things happening in my life, how I'm still reacting or overreacting. It could be feelings. It could be what I'm attached to. And I'm doing, actually, it's amazing. I'm doing a lot of work with hanging out with my son. And he's actually having a house built. So, and I used to be a contractor, and I'm on this job, and I'm getting all pissed off at the contractor. And my son is getting nervous. And I'm like, I don't want to do that, because I'm realizing that how I'm looking at something is different than the way he looks at something. And I'm trying to say, well, he's going through enough stress by building a house at this day and age on different things. And so I'm really starting to surrender with him and with myself on how I can be around him. And then I loved what was being talked about early in the morning. So last night when I went to bed, I started to pray. I started to say, God, I know I have some issues around what went on with the contractor. And I woke up shortly after 4 o'clock this morning. And it was amazing, the downloading of information that came in. And I realized that some of the things the contractor was doing, I used to do. And I went, oh shit, excuse my English. And I went, okay. And then yesterday, my son says, Dad, you can see this stuff, but I can't. And then this morning, what came through for that was the way I used to be. My son felt that. And so what's going on with the contractor, I'm realizing he has to work through. It's not my stuff. And that came through the downloading this morning. And then as I'm talking to him today, he says, Dad, I really appreciate you trying to help me, but you're not. And I went, okay, thank you, God. So it's amazing about what am I resisting, all those subtle little shifts of acceptance and realizing, like I was saying, I still have unfinished business myself to work through. And I have to watch out how I'm not giving it to other people through my resistance or me not accepting things. And so it's amazing how my experiences with what went on yesterday, what went on today, and then coming in here today and just realizing how much that I'm being protected, I'm being loved, and with the presence, all my 5 senses are so much sharper, because that energy that's coming through me is through the presence, the eternal presence. And I feel like all I got to do is just listen and pay attention and stop interfering, that I will be taken care of. And just when I love, Poonam, what you were saying about we're all feeling it in this group, and it is. It's, I mean, out of all other groups, everything, I'm like, there's just an incredible understanding how even myself now, I think of when I came into this group when I first started, I thought I was so scared and full of fear. And then now I'm like, I feel like so equal just in my presence and listening to everybody. And I'm not getting nervous. I don't care if I make a mistake. It's almost like doesn't matter anymore. So it's just an incredible, deep understanding that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be in this moment for everybody. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ken. So you're trying to, out of your experience in construction, you are trying to say that the contractor is going to do so-and-so mistake?
Well, what was happening was they brought in fill and then they had to grade it. But the fill was really porous. There were stones in it like bowling balls and larger. So you can't grade it. They took out 4 loads of stone that took them a day. And I figured what they're being charged, that was $3,000.
Mhm.
And then they told me they took out 4 loads of stone and they were trying to grade it. And I was getting upset because if they had clean fill, they need 4 additional loads of material to finish the grade. And I says, well, since my son paid for the fill initially, you took out 4 loads of stone, never mind the time that it took you to grade it because of that. And now you want to charge him for 4 additional loads? And they said, that's the way it works.
And
I
your
want-
son was okay with paying the extra money?
He's told me, Dad, I'm seeing what's happening, but there isn't really much I can do because this is the contractor that everybody's working for. And pretty much the contractors are saying, we work for him, not for you.
Caesar,
like,
how would
so-
you handle this? Sorry, Ken.
Sure, no.
Caesar is in construction business, so I want
All right,
to
got a
see
builder's
his advice.
So your son's having this work done?
Yes,
Don't pay the bill. Fire him immediately and move on to another contractor. Don't give him another check. Contest it. He has a valid reason to contest it. Not getting what you bargained for. You paid for 4 loads, or 4 loads, I'm sorry, for X amount of yards, and they removed X amount of yards, period. It doesn't matter the substrate of the material.
Right.
You know, you paid for them loads and 4 of them were returned. They need to be replaced, not on your dime. So if I was your son, I would just stop the contract. That's a way out if
Well-
need be, and hold them accountable, and don't get upset about it. It just is what it is. Move on to another contractor. Give them 7 days, which is a valid time amount, and then move forward with another one if you have to. Because if not, he's not going to make a dime, right?
no, but see, the contractor is the one building the house. I mean,
He's got an obligation. It doesn't matter. He has an obligation to take care of his end of the bargain. And
oh,
if that's
I believe me, I know. And then I'm like, my son kind of said, Dad, you need to stay out of this.
Is there a performance bond?
I
Is there
don't
money
know.
in escrow and he pays the contractor as, percentages of the build gets completed?
I don't know.
All right, well,
I
if
could
there's a,
ask him that.
just
And
tell him
he's supposed to move, he's supposed to move in, Caesar. They said in 5 weeks, they'll be done.
I mean, here's the blessing.
Go ahead.
I need $3,000, but this, in a sense, is really a very small situation in essence of the big picture. We're
Correct.
talking dirt on the outside of a house. So there's something there. But if there is a performance bond, he has a legality and to, uphold the builder, to do the contract or whatever, to do as they're, contracted. And if there is a performance bond, he can just stop that payment until that's corrected. If he feels he's been wronged, and it sounds to me like he's been wrong and he's being overcharged. But again, there's a lot to be grateful for. We're only talking about dirt here, not walls that are slanted or brick missing.
Right. No, I know. And that was the thing where I'm like, I'm his dad, and I feel like I got to step out. But then when he asked me, he says, Dad, I know what's going on, but you're not helping matters. And
And
everything
here's
I
the
said,
thing.
yeah. So anyway,
Here's the thing. Your son is actually telling you, I got this. Let him handle it. Because, you know, as a father, just like the one question was relating to earlier, you know, we want to protect our kids and we're going to stand up for them. And God, when somebody messes with our kids, Mama Bear or Daddy Bear is going to come out of the woods ferocious. It's not our place. He's a grown man. He is his own person. It's his situation. You can offer him advice, and then it is what it is. Surrender to the situation. He'll figure it out.
that's yes, okay, and that's pretty
Bless
much what I chose. Yeah. So
Beautiful.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken and Caesar.
Okay.
Perfect advice. Marla, you want to wrap this up?
Oh boy. Phew.
No thought, Marla. Just let it flow, baby.
I love your advice. I'm just,
Here's the question again.
yeah, I see the question. It's okay. I just need to sit for a second, just a quick second.
Sorry.
I have so been in her situation. I had 4 kids I was raising on my own. No money, moved to another town. My anxiety was sky high. I think you cannot argue with the voice in your head. I would advise not arguing with the voice in your head. Try to quiet that says, no, I can't. I turn it around and say, that's arguing with the voice in your head. It takes a lot of work, and I can see why she's tired. That is exhausting, to try to talk your own voice out of what it's saying. I've spent a lot of time doing that, figuring out how I'm going to handle it and making a next step. And then I did feel better. But wow, it's exhausting. Like you said, it takes a lot of mental energy, and therefore I know I'm resisting. Well, you're just trying to cope with with the tools that you have. And there's another tool here. And that tool is to just to rest in trust that it isn't just you in charge of your children. I didn't know that. I was so over controlling with my children. It was just, I had 2 psychologists tell me, you have a control issue. And I said, but I'm responsible for my children. Nobody else to do it. But I'm responsible. I need to do this. You know, I was arguing with the psychologist, for gosh sake. You know, they're supposed to be helping me, and I'm arguing with them. So it's the same thing. I can't remember how I worked myself out of that one exactly. But what I know is that when I finally did move my focus, I think that's what happened. I got really busy studying. I was going to school, and I got really busy studying things that were important to me and enjoying myself. I moved my focus. There's nothing I can do. Okay, I'm going to do this. And then I started reading a chapter in such and such a book, and oh, this is so much fun. Yeah. Hi, sweetie. And I say to my little 3-year-old who was there, and my 15-year-old and my 13-year-old. And, you know, I'd say to them and talk to them. And when I could be happy, I was happy. And somehow within, when you say, when you're fully accepting what is, even when it's uncomfortable, how does that feel? It feels uncomfortable and it feels anxious, but underneath that is peace. If you've accepted it, there's a peace that you can have even when you feel anxious. You can't get rid of anxiety just by saying, go away. I mean, that doesn't work. You have to try whatever you can try, but the best thing is to just try to tune into the center of your very soul and the center of your very being, however you experience that, and go, okay, I trust you're going to take care of this. Here it is. And just hand it over. And then look at your 3-year-old or 2-year-old or whoever it is. Look at them and just appreciate the beautiful little joy that that person is. That really helped me. Having a 3-year-old really helped me because she was so precious. I almost named her Joy. I almost did. Because she kept us sane during that time. And that was one way that I could really feel good, was just to pick her up and say, come here, Emmy, honey, come here. I want to hold you. Okay, mommy. And she put her arms around me and give me a kiss and go, oh, you know, what else can you have but that? You know, that's being in the now. So yeah, you can't argue with the voice in your head. You're just feeding it when you do that. That's what I have to say about that. I hope I'm on track with everybody else, but that's what I have to say.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Marla, for the practical example, and that you cannot beat the voice in the head. Like Caesar was saying, that is a story that she stuck with, that I am totally responsible for my children. One of the things, and just like you, I'm a single mom. What I was always grateful for was that they were good schools and good daycare centers, that the 8-9 hours that I needed to work, that there was somebody taking care of them properly. Right? It's not like, we may think that, oh, I am doing this all by myself, but you're not thanking all the school principal, the school teachers, the caregivers, everybody that is taking care. Then when you take them for the baseball game, the baseball coaches, the parents around the baseball team, you're not being grateful. There's ungratefulness there, right? Because you have to honor all of that sacredness, sacred moments that happen that are raising your children.
Yes. Thank you, Poonam, for reminding me of that piece, because when I needed to have a part-time job in addition to going to school, I had to find somebody to take care of my 3-year-old. The others were in school, but she wasn't. So, and I was fortunate, and Grace was carrying me. Grace carried me all those years, brought me the right people. That's how I knew I was being taken care of. And I can come back to Grace. If I ever write a book, it's gonna have Grace in the title, because Grace carried me, Grace carried me even when I didn't know anything about presence, but somehow it was there. It was there. So yes, I can remember being extremely thankful for her preschool and her daycare provider, who found a friend who would take her from the daycare to the school when it was time and would pick her up, and was so I could go through all the blessings, but there's no point. I mean, it's just, yes, being thankful for all the little blessings along the way is the other way, besides doing something that you enjoy. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Patricia says, Grace carried me. That's the title of your book. Grace carried me. Please write it. On that note,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Grace carried me. That's good. That's really good. Yeah.
Grace carried me. Effortless Grace is always available. This has been such a sacred moment, few hours that we've been talking. Christina always sets this intention in the morning. If anybody has looked at her post, she always says this is going to be a sacred union of all of us being together. So I'm going to hold this space of sacredness. One of the things that I don't know how many of y'all know, one of our members did pass away. This is Sandra Solomon. So may her soul rest in peace. This was a couple of weeks back that she used to be part of a group meditation core group. And then suddenly she dropped, and I didn't know why. She then messaged me a month back or so that she had quite a few surgeries last year, because of which she was not able to attend meditation. And we recently heard that she passed away. So may her soul rest in peace. If you all have a moment, send her blessings. So a great spiritual friend.
I
She
remember
always said,
she had a spiritual breakthrough in a dream that was related to something that you had suggested she do. I think it was medical medium, but I'm not sure. I can't remember
oh,
exactly.
that's Tina. That was Tina.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Sandra was older. She used to be a bus driver, no, a truck driver in Austin, living in Austin, Texas. I don't know if she always talked about A Course in Miracles, if you remember. And she had a beautiful laugh, like she would laugh with her whole spirit.
Yes. Okay, thank you for telling me.
You're most welcome. Okay, have a good night, everyone. Have a wonderful week and much love, many blessings. Good night. Thank you. Thank you, Francis, for being with us.